Hello, my name is Tom, and today I'm going to show you how to add an account to your chart of accounts in Xero accounting software. From time to time you may need to add accounts to your chart of accounts, particularly if you're wanting to track something specific that may not already be included within your chart of accounts or isn't exactly as you'd like it within your chart of accounts. To do this, you need to go to the Accounting tab at the top blue bar in Xero, go to the Chart of Accounts, and that will take you to the list of all of the accounts you currently hold on Xero Accounting. In our scenario, we are going to add a protective clothing expense account so that we can track what we're spending on high-vis equipment for our business. Important things to note with the chart of accounts are they do run account numbers, as you can see on the left hand side here. They have a description, a type of account, which is very important for where these items go, and an understanding of that is important when creating a chart of account. The tax rate, so whether or not it has GST as a general rule on that account, whether it's GST on an income if you're adding an income account, GST on an expense if you're adding an expense account, or if it doesn't have GST, whether it's BAS excluded or GST free. In order to add an account, you first need to determine what type of account it is. So if you are adding a sales account, that will need to go in as a revenue type account. In an expense account, obviously as an expense account. If you're adding an asset, it'll need to go in as a current asset, a fixed asset, or a non-current asset. A liability will go in as a current liability or a non-current liability. If you're unsure on the type of account that needs to be added, you should speak with your accountant. However, in our scenario, we're talking about adding an expense account being for protective clothing. So the first thing we need to do is select the expense tab. This then lists all the expense accounts that we have currently on our Xero file, and you'll note that the expense accounts are alphabetical. So we are going to add a protective clothing account, so we are going to scroll until we find an adequate spot for that, and we go down, and protective clothing PRO is after PRI, so we need that account to sit somewhere between printing and stationery and rent. And we can see the income band there is 461 and 469, so the account we create needs to be somewhere between those two numbers, so we are going to create 462. So now that we've determined where that account needs to go, we will create that account. Up the top we are going to go add an account, and it brings up all the default information we do need to include. The account type, as we spoke about before, determining that. In our scenario we are creating an expense account. We talked about the code, and we were needing to be between 461 and 469, so we are going to make the account 462. And you'll note Xero checks that that is available. The name of the account, this is what we want that account to be when it's represented in the reports we're wanting it for. In our case, protective clothing. It's always important to put a description in as well, so people who are allocating have an idea of what sort of things should go into the account. Items of protective clothing such as high-vis shirts, boots, etc. Most of the time when you purchase on this scenario, it will have GST on it, but you can also select GST free or BAS excluded if it doesn't have GST, but for our purposes it does, so we're claiming GST on expenses. That's important because when you allocate something to that account, the GST will actually be correctly taken from the payment and used as part of your GST calculations for your BAS. Other items you can do with this is you can show the amount on the dashboard. This means that you see a running balance of the amount sitting in that account, and that's clearly visible from your dashboard every time you log into Xero. You can show in expense claims. If you use Xero expenses, this will allow your employees, when they send receipts through, to flag it as protective clothing and allocate it to that account. Enable payments to the account allows you to actually mark a payment off against that account in your bank reconciliation or in the bills account if you're manually entering a payment against it. However, for a protective clothing account, this isn't recommended, and in the event of using that, it's always handy to check with your accountant before using. Once we're happy with the data that's in there, we can hit save, and if we scroll down, we can now see that protective clothing is sitting in there with our description, the GST and a Xero balance ready for things to be allocated to that account, such as in our bank transactions or bank feeds. That is how you add an account to your Xero chart of accounts. If you'd like detailed training on Xero, or you just want a better business accountant, please contact Jeffkins Accountancy and Business Solutions. Thank you.